The plane that crashed last night just outside of Pittsburgh is now known to have been the private jet of the Roottrees Corporation. Local aviation authorities have speculated, based on the pilot's final communication, that the winter storm and heavy winds played a significant role in the crash. On board were multiple family members, including corporate president Carl Roottrees and his daughters, the Roottrees sisters, best known for their fashion lines and modeling careers. There were no survivors. Again, for those of you just joining us, the Roottrees are dead.
I know it's late, but I'm guessing you've seen the news. In addition to dealing with the grief, the Roottrees Company's lawyers are scrambling. Everything's about to change. Anyone proven to be a blood relative is about to get much richer. I'm here to ensure everyone is accounted for. I've heard you're an expert at sorting out complicated family trees. A genealogy genie, as it were. I'm going to give you a quick test. Pass, and I can promise you the job of a lifetime. Sorry to test you, but I had to be sure you could use the internet. Some folks refuse to get with the times. Safe to say, you're hired. The reward for untangling the family tree is substantial. Life-changing, even. But here's the catch. The root trees go way, way back. The family tree's a bit daunting. Most people freak out the first time they see the whole thing. But I'm sure you'll be fine. The man who started it was particular about whom he considered family. For your purposes, you only need his direct blood relatives. Anyone related only by marriage is optional, but filling them in can lead to useful discoveries. Lastly, you now have access to some unique websites, plus a list of notable root trees. Notable people are easy to find via your search engine, and marked with stars on the family tree. I'm off for now. Carl Roottree had a lot in his office. I'll look for anything useful. I'll return once you identify 6 more blood relatives. Sorry, one last thing. This might sound odd, but if anyone else claiming to represent the Roottrees reaches out, I'd appreciate you not mentioning I was here. Thank you, and good luck. You're on a roll. I'll try to keep that momentum going. Carl's office was a mess, thanks to some burst pipes. But I unearthed a photo from a 1970s Roottrees reunion. I also found some important-looking papers. You've traced 9 blood relatives so far. I'll have more to share after you find 9 more.
You're listening to WRTD.
It's time for your headlines. Once an hour, every hour, on the 45. It's a bizarre development to an already tragic tale. In the wake of the accident that took his life, some of Carl Roottree's belongings have apparently gone missing. Most notably, a framed photo of the Roottrees family from the mid-1970s that Carl had on his office wall. We interviewed a local psychologist about who would do such a thing and why. For that article, search online for WRTD News. Again, that's WRTD.
So, you may have heard the news. Some of Carl's things have gone missing. That includes the pictures and mail I brought you earlier. I promise I didn't steal it, but I did borrow it. I'll return it once we're done. Let me deal with my family in the meantime. Oh, I guess that means I've officially confessed. I'm a root tree. I assure you I have a reasonable explanation for the secrecy. I'm about to do something big the family doesn't approve of. If you could just wait a little bit longer, I'll tell you more, in person. I'll return after 15 more blood relatives.
Someday will come, though, that this tree will be the last of what was we. With passing years, all paths diverge, rivers rambling, onward surge. One source behind old memories, but find their ways to different seas. Someday these times will all be over. Times are ours for free. We'll tell ourselves these stories older, dwell on warmth, ignore the colder, probably yearn for what could be, rose tinted by youth's memory. So act as though these times ain't fleeting, love still flows, our hearts hard beating. For now ignore fate's destiny, two roads that cross once at this tree. Someday these times will all be over. Dew dries on the morning clover. So take my hand beneath the tree and carve your name with me. These times are ours for free. Someday these times will all be over. Dew dries on the morning clover.
On the phone, I said I owed you an explanation, but I can't reveal everything. Not yet. I'm sure this all seems like deception for deception's sake, so I'll try to explain why. It's true, I'm working with lawyers, but not the candy company lawyers, my publisher's lawyers. I'm on the verge of releasing a book, and it's not kind to the Roottrees. Especially Elias and the Five Pieces. But with the plane crash, the publisher is rightfully worried it'll look like I'm making things up to exploit a tragedy. So they're doing their due diligence. That's why you're here. To be sure there's enough evidence for an expert to unearth the whole story. If I tell you the whole story now, we can't prove that. I hope you understand. That said, I can say that the work you're doing is very personal to me. To my story, one spot on the tree is more important than the rest. There are fewer Roottrees left. In a sense, that makes it easier. Use process of elimination. It's also harder to verify when you're right. You'll need 4 blood relatives before they lock from here on out. I don't have any more evidence for you, but trust your intuition. If something has a high number, it's not a mistake. You're getting closer and closer to the truth. I look forward to seeing you soon. To my genealogy genie. If you're reading this, it means you've locked in 49 blood relatives. Congratulations! I knew you could do it. There are 2 more entries on the family tree I'd like you to consider. These last 2 are optional. You can summon me whenever you wish. However, this will end your search and reveal the truth. So make sure you're ready. So, you thought EC was Edward Clancy Roottree? And his partner was John Miller? That's exactly what I needed to hear. I'm Sam Madsen, though you know me as Samantha Roottree. Yup, I got old. The only picture you have of me is from 40 years ago. My book tells the truth about Elias, the 5 pieces, and my parents. Not my biological parents, Elias Jr. and Patsy. My fathers. Edward Clancy Roottree and John Miller. By now, you've either read Lauren's diaries, or you're just an incredible guesser. Lauren was right. I hated the 5 pieces. She just didn't know my full reasoning. My father, Edward Clancy, was a great man. But his identical twin Clancy and his father, Elias, were not. At age 16, my father was caught kissing a farmhand. Back then, they wouldn't even acknowledge gay people existed. Having one in the family was unthinkable. The same year, I was born. A bastard granddaughter. 2 stains on Elias's perfect family. He decided to fix both. They tried to erase Edward Clancy. They even removed his 5 pieces flavor. His name was deemed a dirty word. He became EC. We were sent to the farm, and the 5 pieces did their best to keep the next generation away, to isolate me from family. But Elias couldn't erase us from existence. Laura never realized I was the little girl from her diary. Who could blame me for being so confused that day? Her father was an exact copy of mine, except without the beard. And while the 5 pieces celebrated a new factory, farmhands did the real work. It's a fluke there's a picture of my father at all, but there he is in the background. The 6th 5 piece. Patsy returned, and things got complicated for Elias. She fought for my freedom from a life she deemed unworthy. Elias relented, so long as I never learned the truth or receive inheritance. They knew I'd help my father. At Elias's will reading, I learned part of the truth. The rest I learned at home. I began to hate the 5 pieces. My father made me stay silent. He was worried history would repeat and that his grandchildren would become outcasts. His fears weren't unfounded. As you know, my son Ernie died a few years ago. He had trained to take over as president, but due to family politics, or perhaps hubris, it went to Guy. A real Roottree. He nearly ruined the company. When Ernie took over, he saved the operation. Over 13 years, he made the family billions. Ernie earned about $36. They got by on Debbie's salary, but when he fell ill, he couldn't pay his medical bills. His death was my tipping point. Originally, my book was meant to expose Elias's hypocrisy. Until I started to look into the other dirty laundry. Ron tried to have Robbie removed from the trust, but couldn't. Robbie was a blood relative, even out of wedlock. That sounded familiar. The Clancy Trust that Elias established was designed to secure his family's future. His entire family's future. He couldn't write exceptions in without the whole thing falling apart. My book can definitively prove that Elias was not the paragon of virtue he's heralded as, and that my daughter and granddaughters are just as much family, at least in the eyes of the Trust, as anyone else. The Clancy Trust will secure their future. They can decide what to do with their shares. But I'm old, and I'm not in it for the money. The truth has been eating away at me for years, but now I can set the record straight, thanks to you. As someone who enjoys searching for the truth, you might understand the power it has. Whitewashing the past to protect the status quo can lead to repercussions in the present and future. So thank you. You knocked it out of the park. With your expert work, the truth will come to light. And when it does, my share of the Clancy Trust is yours. Like I said at the beginning, set for life. Looking at the family tree on your wall, now with my father's, everything finally feels complete. Unless a whole lot more root trees somehow appear from thin air. This is the last time I'll come knocking. Thanks again, and so long.
We're rolling, rolling, rolling on down to the sea.
Saturday night, and you're quite a sight.
The world might be burning, but I'm feeling right.
Making ends meet, so they rent and eat.
We can't afford gas, so we skate in the streets.
Hi, I'm Clark. Probably not who you expected to be knocking, but life's funny sometimes. You've done well staying anonymous. It took us a while to track you down. A lot has happened in the last year. Far too much of it public. But there's stuff going on behind the scenes, too. I never wanted to be president. I'm not great with stress. And with my mother's deteriorating I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm not here for sympathy. I'm here because part of the fallout of Sam's book is that everyone's coming out of the woodwork. Now that it's public knowledge that Planted Trust covers any root tree despite their history with us, a lot of potential cousins have surfaced. You may have seen that man on the cover of News Time. That was a disaster for us. And then Miracle went and made it all about himself. The long and short of it is a lot of potential cousins just showed up. Sam's helping some of them, but she's not really going about it the right way. And she's not taking calls from anyone in the family. I let it slip through a mutual friend that I found you, and I was stopping in. It's manipulative, but I'm hoping she'll reach out to you. You can let her know I'm on her side. In the meantime, if you're willing, I can share our files with you. Pass them along to Sam if she reaches out. I'm genuinely hoping she'll realize I'm an ally. Feel free to do your own research. I've been told you enjoy things like this. To each their own.
Has Clark reached out to you? Well, let me give you a short history lesson about the last few months of my life. 3 different people contacted me, claiming that somewhere in their history, they might be Roottrees. First, that young man, the rapper. I ignored that one. He seemed dubious. But then I saw the news. I felt terrible. So I began helping the others. Because my doubts with Felix were so misfounded, I ended up putting too much faith in the second person that approached me. I went to the media prematurely. I admit my mistake there, but the third person who contacted me also had a credible case. Before I could help, the company got to them somehow. The fact that the family silenced them doesn't seem to fill me with hope when it comes to Clark's intentions, but you're making progress based on the leads he gave you. It's really hard for me to get a read on him. I'll let you handle it. I've sent you the case I've been working on, and some company records I managed to track down. The records are quite dense, but hopefully they're useful. Good luck!
Sam reached out to me finally. I think I have you to thank for that one. My family's in a bit of a rough patch. Even though the candy is selling better than ever, everyone is fighting over the trust. The majority of us want to dissolve it. On paper, it seems like the right decision. The arguments about what to do next are endless and heated. More than a few Roottrees are worried about losing their wealth. I don't think we deserve it more than anyone else. I love my family, my wife, my daughters, even my son, who I hardly ever get to see. I want to keep them safe and secure, but I didn't do anything to deserve this fortune. Hell, I probably deserve it less than most. It took me way too long to get my life together. Okay, enough about me. Here's the deal. I can't stop the majority from voting one way or another. If you keep passing along potential Roottrees, I'll keep adding them to the list. On the other hand, there's been some leaps forward in genetics. It may sound like science fiction, but we can actually determine who's in the family just by testing their DNA. What you've done so far has been very useful. Just keep filling out the tree and we'll prepare for the tests.
Hey there, it's us. So, I just have to say, the work you're doing here is fantastic.
So fantastic, in fact.
There goes Clark. Always the bad cop. Go ahead.
Well, our law firm, Ruby Legal Enterprises, is having trouble keeping up. They're actually begging us to stop submitting new root trees. They said it's getting difficult to verify your progress.
Well, consider that a good thing. I told Clark you'd get results.
She says that like I didn't believe her. Regardless, the bad news is it's going to take 5 potential tree additions before anyone locks in from now on. Good luck.
And keep up the good work.
Hi again. I know you probably thought you were done. But it turns out what you're doing here might have some pretty major repercussions on the family tree.
Again. Also, there's something really strange happening. I can't explain it.
Neither of us can.
I'd call it a simple misunderstanding, but it's digging at the pit of my stomach. I just have a feeling. Clark?
Last week, let's just say being the president, sometimes people bring me things.
Just skip to the important part.
Right. One of our janitors brought me some hair she'd found in Ruby Spratt's trash. It was Bonnie Hudson's. Bonnie is Guy's sister. She'd sent us her hair to test potential root trees, since her DNA is closest to Guy's. But Ruby threw it out, and I wasn't sure why she would have done that. Especially right before we began testing the tree you provided. When I asked, she told me she thought the samples needed to be fresh every time they did a test.
It seems really odd. Ruby was the one who convinced us to do DNA testing in the first place. She seemed so knowledgeable. I don't like it. You've done more of a deep dive on these people than anybody else has. Clark will keep a closer eye on the DNA tests from now on. You have an eye for anomalies. We need you to find the smoking guns.
If there's anyone you're 100% positive can't be a root tree,
Or any you've got definitive evidence are root trees, then we might be able to catch Ruby in a lie. Beatrice and Courtney May. Clark, can you swing another test against Bonnie's DNA?
This time I'll be sure to have them verify both samples in person.
Using the family tree you filled out, as well as DNA tests, we were able to uncover the truth behind all the inconsistencies. Clark's handling the business, but I've come to thank you and fill you in on everything we've learned. Buckle up, because it's been one heck of a week. Actually, that's an understatement. It's not every week you discover your family company is being sabotaged by someone they trusted. But that's the kind of time we've been having. Like I said, buckle up. Maybe grab some popcorn. We'll start with Guy Hudson. Guy had a frankly ridiculous number of potential children. What shocked me is how many graduated from potential to confirmed. We can even prove he was aware of them. The smoking gun was how he used company money to pay off a lot of women. He hid it with a method inspired by his idol, Elias. 5-piece flavors. The flavors he was paying to research were a ruse. He developed flavors based on the initials of the women he was paying. Which was really stupid, considering one of their names started with X. Let's start with Christine. Guy was paying her under the name Caviar, but there were some other clues. James was born 9 months after Zach's party. Christine was there with Guy, and when she got pregnant, she panicked. Steve stepped up. He even turned it into one of his recipe stories. Not all of Guy's affairs led to offspring. He may have slept with Robin Martin, but she didn't have children, so we'll never know. Also, not every child of Guy's affair partners were his. Robert Garland was born after his parents had already moved to Boston. Skipping Beatrice for now. Up next is Lang Xin-yu. When Guy showed up in China, she was into America. And Americans. Dare I say redheads, even? When she got pregnant, her father paid key genes to fake IVF. They claimed her sister was unable to conceive. But her sister and Jerry had their own son, Mark. Sonia Alves was soon after. Nia was married at a very young age to a much older husband. She resented him. I don't blame her. They allegedly spent no time together in private. Guy was in Brazil during Christmas 1979. It's the only Christmas not in the records. Flavio was born 9 months later, and like the others, Guy started paying Sonia. Last was Susan Ford, hired to translate for Guy's overseas trips. It's easy to read into Guy's donation to her school, but there's no definitive proof there. She and Guy were witnessed together near the end of his life. Susan's husband was convinced he couldn't be the father of her daughters. Guy, though, paid double. The price of twins. So, what about 5 Ps? Felix Fellow's mother, Joanna, doesn't have a 5 pieces flavor. On top of that, his story doesn't really add up. His mother already left the company by the time Guy became president, and his lyrics indicate he was born sometime around 1975. Alone, that wouldn't necessarily prove it. But there are some suspicious connections between Felix and the company's current lawyer, Ruby Spratt. They both grew up in Portland, in foster care, and according to the local paper, they definitely knew one another. Ruby was the one who approached the Roottrees to begin with. It was all a setup. Ruby and Felix saw my book's challenge to the Clancet Trust as an opportunity. His mother really had worked for Roottree, and Ruby was a respected lawyer. She exploited my family's greed, worked her way into control of the trust, and ensured Felix got a piece. But they made some mistakes along the way. If you look at the 2 DNA tests that Ruby handled, they were both supposedly tested against Bonnie Hudson. But the 2 signatures that should both represent Bonnie don't match. After Clark and I confronted her, Ruby lawyered up. Ironic, I know. We suspect Ruby had Donatico test Felix against his own mother's DNA. He had a hairbrush of hers. They sent the female sample in remotely. On the second test, Bonnie's sample was tested locally, but Courtney May's was not. Ruby's been throwing away samples. We think she sent her own hair instead of Courtney May's, but it could have been anyone's. Ruby and Felix were in cahoots. As for why, they were both advocates of wealth redistribution. A noble effort. But once they controlled the family fortune, they became just as greedy as the worst members of my family. The money corrupted them. They were so eager to personally wield the wealth for their own cause that they sabotaged any other claims. That finally brings us to Anonymom, a.k.a. Beatrice Watts. Her tales of guys' parties and payoffs were true. She even approached Ruby before 5Ps was on news time. Ruby used Beatrice's truths to make Felix's lies feel real, then ruined the DNA test so that Beatrice looked phony in the public court of opinion. I feel worst for her in all of this. While Ruby and Felix stole the show, there were some other potential new family members as well. Miracle Roottree was less of an open and shut case. That said, it's very likely he had a son with Mary Beth Clementine. Not Stuart. Mary Beth adopted him before she ever set foot in Butler County. That leaves Mark. The timeline fits. He showed up about 9 months after Mary Beth visited Miracle. And the basket baby story is a bit too convenient. If that's not enough on its own, he was also bailed out by the sister of Edith Roottree, Miracle Jr.'s wife, after she changed her name to win that silly contest. Our best guess is that Mark was told by his mother whose son he was, and used that fact to put some pressure on Miracle Jr. We have no real proof of that, but nothing else really makes sense for why they'd be connected in that way. Elias's affair was the most ambiguous. Gwyneth was able to coerce Elias to do things he wouldn't have otherwise done, like pressure to include me in the family. My son even mentioned them arguing about someone named Beth. Combined with Gwyneth's lisp, it's possible the name was actually Bess. Unfortunately, all we know about Bess Williams is that she wrote his book and died not long after, leaving her only son an orphan. The timeline fits with Wildcat, but there's no record if she had any other relationship. Honestly, I wouldn't say we had enough evidence either way. I wouldn't be surprised if Elias cheated. Of course, I'm a bit biased. Regardless, we haven't gotten in touch with any of the Williams clan yet. That means we haven't been able to do a DNA test. As Clark mentioned, from here on out, all of our DNA tests will be in person for both parties. Lastly, we have a bit of a curveball. Ron Roottree isn't related to us by blood. Gwyn was definitely pregnant, so it's likely Robbie is. When Ron and Robbie went to visit their mother at the end of her life, something changed. Additionally, there have been a few rumors circling around Ron. RR Productions canceled the Guys Like Us remake due to the director's illness. At the same time, Ron's wife Penelope began doing benefits for Huntington's disease, stating that she had become familiar with it. Huntington's is the same disease that Gwyn's former co-star Leslie Florence had. It's passed from parent to child. It can't skip a generation. Because Gwyn and Wild Bill didn't have Huntington's, and Ron seems to, it's impossible Gwyn was his mother. I recently confirmed all this with Ron. At the end of her life, Gwyn told Ron the story. Leslie and Bill had an affair the same year Leslie learned she had Huntington's. Leslie got pregnant. Leslie wasn't likely to survive to see her child grow up. And even if she did, she didn't want to be a burden. She begged Gwyn and Wild Bill to adopt her child. Gwyn did. Mere weeks after she found out she was having her own son, she also took in Ron. Wild Bill was a problem. Unreliable and a serial adulterer. Gwyn divorced him and never saw him again. Gwyn had already told Starlet she was pregnant, so it never really made waves when people saw her with a child in Paris. There was gossip during her divorce when she was discovered to be pregnant again. In actuality, it was the final months of her only pregnancy. To lay low, she stayed in Paris long enough that even her own family never had reason to question the timeline. It's one heck of a story, and frankly nobody could be expected to piece the timeline together, not with what few mentions of Gwyn's past have survived. But the Huntingtons itself? That's proof. Ron suing Robbie to remove him from the Clancet Trust was a huge moment in my story, and a major catalyst for this entire investigation. Finding out that it's been pretty much backwards this whole time has been a bit surreal. So that's where we're at. Looking over the information you sent us was invaluable. You got everything absolutely correct. Why did we even bother hiring a team? You figured it all out solo. All this information, this entire story. It's a lot, in more ways than one. Some of it has the potential to destroy marriages and ruin relationships. We're handling it all very, very carefully. But we couldn't have gotten here without you. And with that, I guess our tale has finally, truly come to an end. What a strange one it was. No words can express how grateful I am to you for untangling this mess. Honestly, I've had enough of my family's eccentricities and scandals for one lifetime. I imagine you have as well. And if not, well, there's always Elias's and Gwyneth's brothers and sisters.
Attention, attention